Hey, everybody. Welcome to Uncut Faith. Thanks for joining us here this evening on a Wednesday night when it's nice and snowy out, at least where we're at. Anybody have trouble driving today? You guys?
No, the roads aren't bad. Like the edition I live in is like a solid sheet of ice still. Like it was plowed and then we got like the snow and then the rain and then it froze and like nothing else has happened since then. So my neighborhood is treacherous, but outside of that, it's really not too bad.
Yeah, my driveway is probably the most dangerous place for me.
Yeah, I keep looking outside. I'm going, I don't want to blow my driveway again. I don't want to blow it again. Like last Sunday was just torture. And I'm like, I don't want to do that again. But, if I have to, I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it is. But I did have I had a fun instance happen this afternoon. It was really interesting. I was on Coldwater going towards the mall. And there were two roads it was a turn lane, two turn lanes where people could be in. And then there's a straightaway. I was in a straightaway at a stoplight, car in front of me, and the turn lights turned green, but ours was still red. The car started going. The car in front of me thought it was green. As all these cars were turning, she went out in the middle of the road. It had two lines of cars stopped. And she would have been better off going forward, but instead she tried to back up. I was just I'm watching this going, what is happening? And thankfully no one got hurt, but it was just like the car next to me had a couple girls in it and they were going, ah, it's like, wow. She was, I don't know if she was texting, but that's kind of a weird text. Well, maybe a glance out of the eye saw green and thought it was green for her. And
yeah.
Strange stuff. So what do you got planned here tonight, Jason? You had some fun things that you wanted to do with us. You might want to introduce the guy down below.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's do that first. So joining us on the show today is my friend Jake Johnson. Is like J squared a thing? Or, do you have any nicknames?
When I was in middle school, people called me J squared.
Yes.
JJ.
JJ? Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Yep.
So this is a fun fact, not related to anything, but when I was in college, we played intramural basketball, and so we had a basketball team called the Jesus Jocks, and our logo was J squared.
I'm just thinking of all the. Never mind, I won't go
there. So anyway, sorry. Back to Jake. So yeah, Jake is a good friend of mine. He works at Youth for Christ. And I met him a number of years ago. How long ago did you come to work for us, Jake?
I think I'm going on year 4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, in May.
So I met Jake a number of years ago, right as he was coming on board. And right away, I was just, I don't want to say surprised, but just blown away maybe by his maturity and his just passion for loving people. And so, so Jake's been doing some really cool stuff. We're going to chat with him a little bit later about what he's got going on out in Columbia City. But before we do that, we've got a few things we want to chat about. So we're going to be adding some more segments into the show as we go. The first one is just kind of like some hot topics, things happening right now. One of them is the streaker at the Super Bowl.
Bucket list of mine.
Not mine. So I'm not going to recommend watching that video. It's like PG-13. But the interesting part about that is I don't know how betting works and all this stuff. But from what I understand, he ended up making a lot of money off of doing that. Have you guys heard this?
We've had a prop bet.
Yeah. So I guess there was a bet that you can that there was going to be a streaker at the Super Bowl. And so it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. He went streaking at the Super Bowl.
That's genius. I was listening to Dan Le Batard show yesterday, and Mike, the co-host, was doing prop bets on what would be said on the show, and so I'm guessing that's where they got that from. Now it all makes sense. I'm like, okay, that's genius.
Yeah, so it was something crazy like $350,000 is what he was bringing home after the fact.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
That's pretty awesome. So what are your guys' thoughts on the Weeknd and the halftime show?
I'm glad the weekend is over. Oh, wait. I couldn't resist, all the weekend. I thought it was okay. I wasn't blown away. It was the first time I didn't have to worry about what was on the TV for my kids. I thought it was creative, but at the same time, I'm old and I'm not a millennial, and so or a Gen Z, so I really wasn't that familiar with his non-popular songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think for me, it was weird until afterwards, I read the story behind it, like his whole story behind why he did what he did. Cause I was like,
Mhm.
this is like a weird show.
So
And
you
I was,
like the bandages on his face?
yeah, like all that stuff. I was like, what is going on here? And then
Yeah.
the next day I read the story and I was like, oh, that's actually intriguing. Like it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But
So I
before
guess,
that, I was like, I don't get it.
so for those that don't know, what's just like the Cliff Notes version of the bandages on the face?
Yeah, it's to be honest, I don't fully know. I just know it's something to do with his life story and plastic surgery. And there was like just different things with his story throughout the whole thing. And I guess they were talking about how one of the articles that I read was talking about how he had done that with different shows where he showed bits and pieces of his story. And then that was like a collaboration of all of his story into one. So that
Yeah.
was the article that I read.
Yeah, so like for years, like at Grammy Award shows and things like that, he showed up with either like bruises on his face or even
Oh wow.
bandages. And he's never explained it why. Like he's never
Yeah.
explained why. And so up until that's honestly kind of been leading up to this moment. And it was just kind of more from what I understood, the story of he's just kind of rebelling against Hollywood's expectations of being perfect and plastic surgery and things like that, and just like how in a way like we're maiming ourselves in order to chase perfection. And so yeah, it definitely has kind of an interesting message behind it. So yeah, I'm with you, Byron. I was the same way. I was like I was actually at your house watching the Super Bowl, and
Yeah.
I wasn't like afraid to like run in front of the TV. You know, to be pole dancers or something and have to explain to my children. So
Well, it was the first time, from my understanding, that an artist didn't have special guests. No other artist jumped in with them. It was just completely him the whole time.
Yeah. So it was good. I mean, it was kind of boring in a way. Obviously, the memes come out the next day. I saw one that when he was in the lighted room looking around, it's like when church finally opens and you forget where the bathroom is. So, you know, the memes come flying, but overall, it wasn't like the most exciting, but also I thought it was like the most family friendly. So I'm okay with that one. But,
so did you know that the Super Bowl was one of the lowest watched Super Bowls in a while?
I didn't hear that, no, but I believe it, I guess. I'm going to guess Tom Brady has something to do with that.
Actually, I thought it would have been higher because nobody's doing parties. So you'd have more people viewing on TVs than what normally would because they're at all the parties or the bars and all that. But instead, yeah, it was actually a lower viewership. So
yeah, I was talking with a student this week, and he's 20 years old, just turned 21, and Tom Brady has been in 10 Super Bowls. I said, so think about it. You've been alive for 20 years. That means half of your life, Tom Brady has been in a Super Bowl somewhere. So much as people love, and that's actually a hot take. Maybe we'll talk on that one next time. But Tom Brady being in the Super Bowl 10 years is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing I wanted to chat about before we get into the meat of tonight, I started something. I really wasn't expecting this kind of response, I guess is the best word, but I posted a simple question. So we're going to start the segment. Like I said, Byron's going to get us some really cool graphics at some point. We're not there yet, but so this part of the show is going to be called Hot Takes, where we would love to hear your unpopular opinions and we will chat about them. So if you see any of these unpopular opinions and you want to weigh in, feel free to do so on the comments page. But actually, Jake, I didn't even ask you to be on the show yet, did I, by the time I posted this?
I don't think so.
Okay, no. Yeah. So Jake just blindly posted this on my Facebook page, and he should have known. So he actually posted 3 of these hot takes, and I'd like to have a short discussion on them. Let me find my notes here. The first one is Star Wars is all about nostalgia. What does that mean, Jake? You want to explain yourself a little bit?
Are you even old to have watched the original Star Wars? Come on. I'm the old man in the room.
I am. So, but I didn't watch Star Wars growing up. And a lot of my friends are really big into Star Wars. And when I went to watch it, I was like, this ain't it. Like, this just isn't it for me.
Like, I don't get it, right?
Like I didn't fully understand. I'm like, I don't get why everyone likes this so much. Like, it's interesting, but it just didn't really catch my attention. So So yeah, I don't know. I feel like the people who grew up watching it are like, this is great, I love it. And the people who didn't are kind of like, I don't really get it.
I like Star Wars, and I grew up watching it. I mean, I saw it in the movie theaters. I was born in 1976.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, I've seen this stuff as a kid. So I know. But back when I was like, before I hit my teenage years, when you watched the local channels, which you only had 3 or 4 at most.
Turn the dial on the TV.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the click. Make sure. And if you want to play video games, you had on UHF channel 3.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. And sometimes you still had black and white TVs. So anyway, it would be on like maybe once every other month, and you got to watch it with commercials and everything over and over again. But I was more of a Star Trek fan.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
So I still prefer Star Trek over Star Wars.
So Star Trek with William Shatner Star Trek, or
I like Next Generation. William Shatner was good. I like the movies. The show, I've seen every one of the episodes of shows. The Furbies is the best. The Furballs, yeah.
Nobody knows what that means.
See, that's what I mean. I'm like
Ewoks or something.
No, there were these little furball creatures that they went to a planet, they got in their ship, and they looked really cute, but they ended up multiplying to extremes, and it filled the whole ship up, and they had to figure out how to get rid of them. They were a pest.
Is that the toy Furby? Like, is that the same?
Kind of like that. They're pretty. They were called Furby something, and they're round, and they just exploded all over the ship. They were breeding everywhere.
Man, that's hilarious. Yeah, I can talk about Star Wars. Oh man, I had no idea we'd go into Furbies. But yeah, I can remember going over to my friend's house. I was maybe middle school, if not like late elementary school. And he's like, "Oh, I've got Star Wars." And I think this was even before like episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out. And so he put in his, his VHS tape, and we're watching it. And I remember like, I thought Star Wars was like, because the hype about it was so big, but I was like, nothing's happening. Like, not a lot really happened. Every now and then you finally get into sword fights, but I remember being kind of disappointed. So,
and the sword fights were not that good back then. The original sword fights were bad.
Yes, they were. So, all right. So, hot take number 1: Star Wars is all about nostalgia. I'm not going to say I disagree with you. I'd say there's probably something to that. I think, like you said, the reason the other ones have kind of exploded since then is just because people still like watching them. Yeah. Hot take number 2. Let me find this one. Oh man, I lost it again. Coffee. What did you say about coffee? I had it right here.
I said, how did I word that?
Is it a placebo or something?
Coffee's a placebo and an idol, and it's really not that
good. So I have a thing ever since I've been married with my wife about coffee.
Okay.
I've sometimes tricked her into actually believing it's true that the smell of coffee in the air is poop.
Whoa. What?
Okay, there's not that much distinguishing in smell between poop and coffee.
Yes, there is. There's a very big difference. One smells good and one smells terrible.
If you do the coffee, the air is just a little bit off. You can. I have my kids now. Sometimes, like I go, "Does someone poop? What's that?" Every time I smell the coffee maker going.
Oh, so you still make coffee at your house then?
My wife makes the coffee. I don't drink coffee. Never have. Probably never will.
Because you think it smells like poop.
I don't like burnt toast.
And it's a placebo and an idol.
Yeah. So I think maybe I even posted this on there, but I don't know anybody that likes the taste of coffee the first time they drink it.
That's a problem.
Right? I mean, so like, why though? Why do we like we're obsessed? I think America
is an acquired taste
coffee now. Yeah. Right. But why do we acquire the taste? Why do we even go there?
No clue.
I don't understand it. I don't get it.
I mean, is it because then we'll probably talk about Starbucks in another future hot takes episode. Because there was a lot of hate on Starbucks as well. But I usually put creamer and sugar in it anyways. Like by the time I drink it, I don't know if it's good coffee or bad coffee because it all tastes like sugary milk to me. But I think it's the caffeine. Like, are we as Americans just obsessed with caffeine and that's what we need?
Yeah. I think there are better ways to get caffeine than coffee, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially like the UK and other countries, like tea is much more of a thing.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, we in America decided coffee. All right, so last one, then we'll move on to the next segment. Somebody's dog is mustard.
I'm in my boy's room right now, so I'm away from the dogs and kids.
What did you say about mustard? Mustard's
better than ketchup.
Oh, snap. Let's hear it, man. Why? Where does that even come from?
I just don't like ketchup. I don't know. I've never liked ketchup. Never will like ketchup. I think I was scarred as a kid because we did like this Fear Factor thing at church camp, and I had to like just like squeeze this bottle of ketchup in my mouth. And ever since then, I'm like, nope, ketchup's not for me. I don't want it. You put it on something, not going to eat it. And then I just started liking mustard. I don't know.
So like your French fries, no ketchup on French
No,
fries?
I use mustard with my French fries.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's very few kids who like mustard. Again, that's more of like an older person acquired taste.
Yeah.
My boys love mustard.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Wow. Do they eat ketchup?
They like ketchup too. And I like neither.
You don't like either of them? No
No.
coffee, no ketchup, no mustard?
I like barbecue sauce.
Okay.
Give me some good BQ.
This is a very Midwest thing. How do you feel about ranch?
I don't like ranch either.
Oh,
Big
man.
fan. Big
Yeah.
fan.
No.
Jake, are you a ranch on everything kind of guy?
Not everything, but I do eat ranch on quite a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I do love ranch.
Cool. Good. Yeah. Mustard. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Have you ever seen like athletes eat it to relieve cramps? Byron, you work with college athletes, right?
That is the first time I've ever heard that.
Are you
Yeah,
serious?
I've never heard that either.
Oh yeah. So like if somebody gets cramps, like guys will have like packets, little packets of mustard.
I've heard of
you
you load up on potassium with bananas beforehand.
No, this is like your legs cramping. You hobble over to the side. Maybe it's just a wrestler thing. Wrestlers are idiots. But you run over to the side and you just eat straight mustard. Supposedly that helps.
I don't believe that.
That's interesting.
That's a placebo.
Yeah,
That's definitely a placebo.
Yeah.
There's no scientific evidence to that one probably at all.
I'm going to look it up next week or next time we're on our next show. I'm going to look up the scientific evidence for mustard working.
Cramps. Okay.
Leg cramps, right?
Yeah.
Oh man! All right. So the other thing we've got lots of ideas for the show. We're kind of excited to see where it's going to go. Another segment we want to talk about is like the video. So every show we've kind of showed. You showed your men's volleyball video last month, and then last week we showed. Was it the Bernie memes? Is that what it was?
Yeah, the Bernie memes.
Memes. Yeah. So this one just started going viral, I think, yesterday. Byron's got the video. We'll just show it and then we'll discuss it afterwards. So Byron, take it away.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
we're trying to. Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow next to this.
Oh man. So oh my gosh.
I don't. What's so funny? What are you guys laughing at? I don't understand.
So like I'm gonna do like at the very like that video just cracks me up for so many ways. But the first thing is
It's classic.
It's quiet, and then they're like, I believe you have a filter on, and the guy's like, ah. Oh my gosh. I can't even take you seriously.
No.
Should I talk like this the whole entire segment? No.
Yeah.
So, have you guys used any filters whenever you're doing Zoom?
No, I've done backgrounds before.
Yeah.
Never,
I use this thing called Snap Camera. It's a must. It's a free download. You can look it up. It's made by Snapchat, and you can use it in Zoom and any type of streaming platform. And you name it, it has it on there. There's one where a cat lays on top of your head, and it looks like a real cat laying on top of your head. So anyway, I'll go back to normal here.
Thank you for that. But yeah, I don't know. Like every time I watch that video, I just laugh about it. I mean, it's one thing like it's your staff meeting, but this was like a couple of lawyers with a judge, right?
Oh, it's old people not knowing what they're doing, which makes it even funnier. Oh, our staff meetings, we would do it when we were all in quarantine. We'd have like a Zoom meeting once a week with everybody, and there was like 40 of us in this meeting. And it was more fun watching other people because we do it at lunchtime. And like some people just not understanding like the stuff, like their dog was doing things or they were eating food in a weird way. And it was mainly older people who were clueless. I'm like, you do realize you're on camera. And it's like they didn't have any comprehension that they were on camera. And it was just I missed those Zoom meetings. They were so funny. That was more fun to watch.
Do you guys remember the newscaster? Like this was in the middle of the pandemic when everybody was locked down, and this newscaster is like zooming from home, and like this guy's kid comes rolling in on the little baby cart with their feet, and then like the wife comes running in, crawling on the floor, like tries to drag the baby out. Oh man, that one cracked me up.
Oh yeah, there were so many good times back then with everybody having to do Zoom and the crazy things that would take place from home.
Which is so funny that like we're even at this place now that somebody didn't even know how to get a cat filter off.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the line? I even wrote it down.
I mean, that would be the perfect prank to do to your grandpa. He's like a lawyer who has no clue. He just knows I use Zoom, and you just put it on there, and he would never know.
I think quote of the day then is he's like, I'm ready to proceed if you are.
I'm not a cat.
Yeah. Guy's like, we know that. But can you imagine? I was like, oh, good. I really thought it was.
Yeah.
Yes, aliens have come down and made you a cat. So.
Oh man, so much fun. So yeah, so I don't know, we're excited. We got lots of cool stuff. We're gonna go ahead and move on to I guess the meat of the evening. So Jake, why don't we start off with just telling us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, and what's going on out in Columbia City.
Yeah. So my name's Jake. I'm the Columbia City High School Campus Life Director. So I work for Youth for Christ. Do you just want me to go right into
yeah, go for it. Yeah, go ahead and tell your story. I love your story you shared last time.
Yeah. So there was this time I was on vacation with my girlfriend at the time. I was with her family. And we were at Lake Michigan, and these people told us about this sandbar that you could swim out to. And so me and my girlfriend at the time, her brother-in-law, he was also there. And so we decided we were going to swim out to this sandbar. And so I wasn't much of a swimmer. So like, I'm like doggy paddling out to this sandbar, and we get out there to the sandbar, and it's a pretty long distance, and I can't touch the bottom at the sandbar. So I'm not a super tall guy, right?
I'm gonna wait for you. Yeah, can you?
Yeah.
You sure why? Maybe you couldn't.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not call for your height, right?
So I'm not
taller in real life.
Yeah. And so I can't touch the bottom. And so I start like going underwater, and I'm like taking water in, and I'm pushing myself off the bottom, coming back up, and I'm like, I gotta swim back or I'm gonna drown out here. Like I literally am like struggling. And so I start swimming back. I have waves coming over my head. I'm sucking in water, and in the distance I see my girlfriend's dad, and he's kind of like looking like he can kind of tell that I'm struggling a little bit. And I was like, I got to be tough. Like I'm not going to ask for help because it's my girlfriend's dad. I got to be tough. And so I'm swimming, and I'm seriously thinking like, all right, God, if this is my time to go, this is my time to go. Like I honestly thought I was going to drown in Lake Michigan. And it makes me think about like just how prideful I was. Like I wasn't willing to ask for help. I wasn't willing to reach out and ask for help. And so I think for me, that's a place that I've been at where I just try to do everything on my own. I don't ask for help. I don't seek out help. And I think that for me, I've just noticed that that's a place where a lot of people are at. Like when we struggle, we don't ask for help. We don't really have community necessarily. At least some people don't have that community, and they're not willing to ask for it. And so I don't know. There's a lot to the story of how it's developed, and God has just worked in a lot of unique ways. But I've been a youth pastor for 5 to 7 years before I went to campus life. And so because of that, I always had my church like kind of handpicked for me. And it's pretty easy to get involved or get connected because you're a pastor and people know who you are and things like that. And so when I took a job at the Aquatic Center in Columbia City and then started working for Youth for Christ, I had to find a church. And that's an experience I hadn't really had before because my parents planted a church. Like my parents always worked for the church. And so as a single young adult, I start like trying to find a church. And I felt like everywhere I went, I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel like I was finding community. I didn't really feel like I was finding what I needed. And so one of the things that I noticed as I was attending different churches is a lot of people my age that are single young adults were non-existent. There were people my age that might have been married, maybe they're dating, but there wasn't a whole lot that were my age that were single at the churches that I was attending. And so I visited probably 30 to 40 churches just to see like how non-existent is my generation or my age group that's single young adults, like non-existent in the church. And so I had just a heart for like people my age that are single young adults struggling to find community and helping them to find a church and figuring out what that looks like or to be connected in some way, a part of the body of Christ. And so there was a day, so I felt this like small call to that, but I didn't really do anything with it. And so there was this day where I had just reached out to someone. So one thing that I do, I post a lot on social media. And one thing that I pay attention to is the people that like my stuff versus how many people like my stuff. And so if I post something about God or Christianity or something, and I recognize someone liked that post that doesn't know God or doesn't have a relationship with him or wouldn't say that they do, I'll then reach out to them and message them and ask them how they connected with that post. And I'll probably try to get breakfast with them or lunch or dinner or whatever, and talk about that. And so I did that with someone I had gone to high school with. And so I met with him in the morning and I'm meeting with him. And one of the major things that he talked about is he's really struggling to find community and find friends, because a lot of his friends were in jail, which is what he had just gotten out of. And so I have this meeting with him and then I go to Dunham's right after that. And this girl that I know is working at Dunham's, and I'm talking to her about her life and trying to catch up on her life a little bit. And as she's like stocking jock straps in Dunham, she's like, I just really don't like my job. I don't like my life.
Literally jock straps.
Yeah,
like,
literal.
That is amazing.
Like this is, and she said, I'm really struggling to find community. And so these things are one right after the other. And then I go to Walmart to return something and I start randomly talking to the cashier who's about my age. And he said, yeah, I'm taking classes online at Ivy Tech. And a lot of my friends went off to college, so I'm really struggling to find community. And then I go to the pool where I work, and one of the assistant managers that's there, he's my age. He's a single young adult. And we start having a conversation, and he said, yeah, I'm just really struggling to find friends right now because a lot of my friends are off doing other things or they're married or whatever. And so that day I was like, man, like I feel strongly that God's calling me to do something for this group. And I get a text from one of my friends. Her name's Stephanie Knott, who Chase knows.
Heyo.
And she texted me and she said, because I had talked to her about it a little bit and some other people in that group like Libney, Levi, TJ, this group of ministry leaders that I have, and this group of friends that has kind of really connected, and just this really transparent group of people that are trying to be in good community. And so I talked to him about it. And one day Stephanie texted me and she said, I think you're supposed to read Nehemiah. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, and she's like, I don't know why you're. Yeah. She was like, I don't know why, but I feel like you're supposed to read Nehemiah. And so I start reading Nehemiah, and it's really interesting. Like Nehemiah is this cupbearer to the king. So he's a servant to the king, and his city is Jerusalem, where he's from. And Jerusalem's walls are in ruins, is what it says. So the wall and the gates were destroyed. And it said that it bothered him. It made him sad. And I was thinking about, when I read that first part, our generation of single young adults being non-existent in the church bothers me. Like, that makes me sad. Like, it should bother us that they're not in community or a part of the body of Christ in some way, on a larger scale. And so I read that first part, and then the next part, it talks about how Nehemiah goes without sharing his heart with people to check the gate, to check the walls, to check the things that are destroyed, after he ends up going to Jerusalem, after he gets the king's permission to do so. So he's going to Jerusalem. He wants to rebuild the walls. And so for me, like, that was me, where I'm going to churches to see, like, why are they non-existent? I'm meeting with these people to see, and I have this heart that God's given me, but I haven't shared a vision for it yet, besides with this close group of friends. And so there are people that went with Nehemiah to check those things. And then when you look at it, like, it doesn't even, when they go to rebuild the walls, Nehemiah isn't the first person that it talks about. It's like, this person and their brother built this part of the wall, and this person and their brother built this part of the wall, and this person and their sister, like, built this part of the gate. And it's all these people. And then it talks about Nehemiah built this part of the wall. So, like, all these people are building their part of the wall, like rebuilding their part of the wall. And when I think about it, it's like, me as an individual, I can't rebuild our entire generation of people. But if me and Stephanie and Libney and Levi and TJ and Kelsey, like, if all these people come together, we can each rebuild our part of the wall, or our part of the gate that God's calling us to. And eventually we can help rebuild our generation of people and connect them to the body of Christ, or solid community. And so in chapter 4, then it talks about how the enemy sees that they're rebuilding these walls and these gates, and it's still attacking. So it's like, when we're in community, it's not that depression and suicidal thoughts and sin and all these things go away. Like, the enemy still wants to attack. The enemy still wants us to feel these certain ways, and wants us to feed into the lies that he's telling us. But together we can keep as much of that out as possible when we're in solid community. And so I'm reading about how Jerusalem's walls are in ruins. And then I felt like God told me that I was supposed to go read this verse or this chapter in Isaiah that really impacted me when I was in high school. So I had this really bad car accident. Long story short, like, I had just started going to Bible studies. I wasn't being really solid in my faith. I had a lot of things going on, and my Bible was in the back of my car. And when I hit this tree, the seat in the back fell down. My Bible fell in the seat, and then the seat closed on my Bible. And so my friend's dad was the tow truck driver, and he calls me and my mom the next day. He's like, "Hey, you guys need to come check this out." And so we go to the junkyard and pull out my Bible, and there's one page that it's sitting on, and it's Isaiah 49. And it talks about how God wanted to bring Jacob back to him. So, like, my name's Jacob, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm reading this, and like, God's calling me out by name and saying, like, how he wants to bring me back to him. Like, I felt that personally. And so I go back and read this, and I always stopped at that verse, because I was like, that's what God wanted to speak to me in that moment. And so then I go back, and I was like, as I'm reading that, I'm like, this has nothing to do with Nehemiah or what I'm like thinking about or praying about right now. And so I felt like God told me to read further down. And so as I'm reading further down, it is in Isaiah 49, 16, it says, "See, I have written your name on the palms of my hands. Always in my mind is a picture of Jerusalem's walls in ruins." Mm-hmm. And so, like, as we're processing this group, I'm like, the ruins, like, that's what we're supposed to call it. We're supposed to call it the ruins, because we are broken people that are in ruins, and without good community, without God, like, we are in ruins. But when we come collectively together, like, we can rebuild the walls, we can rebuild the gates. And so that's kind of where the ruins came from. Sorry, that was really long, but like, there's just so many details to it. And yeah.
So Jake, how old are you?
27.
27. All right. So you're in your upper 20s.
Yep.
Single?
Yep.
Okay. So I didn't get married till I was 35.
Yeah.
So there's hope for you.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I mean, okay, I'll give you a little bit of hope here with that. I wouldn't change my story for anything. Now, did I hate it through that time of being single, being all the way up to 35? Oh yeah. I mean, I did the whole eHarmony thing, all that. There's some crazy people on there, by the way. I do not recommend it.
Tinder, that's the new thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the eHarmony thing was supposed to be able to meet actual
Not a good
girls.
thing.
Tinder, okay.
Good thing.
Yeah. But like, I feel for you guys in your age range and being single, and especially in the church. I mean, it's not even just a church thing. We're in a culture where it's, like by the time in your late 20s to early 30s, you're supposed to be married by then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just tough.
Right.
And so how are you helping connect with like just other people? I heard a little bit about like what's your gathering look like when you guys all come together as everyone's to help everyone feel included in what's taking place?
Yeah. It's really interesting that you brought that up because we had someone new actually this last week. And they actually mentioned that a lot of times when they go to groups, they feel like that's kind of what it is like people are like, oh, trying to set this person up or this person up. And they said, and they said they didn't feel like that at our group. A lot of our group is like, for me, I don't even know how to describe it. It in Galatians 5:26, it says, since we live by the Spirit, may we walk in step with the Spirit. And that's what I constantly am challenging myself with and the people around us in that group. And I have super solid people beside me, like the Stephanie Libney, like we split things up. Like it's all, like I wasn't even there for 3 weeks because I coached basketball and I couldn't be, but it still ran because those people then took charge and they took over and they ran it. Like, and it's, how can we find ways for people to take something where they can then apply it to their week? That's the big thing about our group. Like that's what we really strive for. So it's like giving everyone the opportunity to have a voice in what we're talking about. And then how can we give something where they can take it away to their week? And so like, for example, this last week, we talked about the difference between a greenhouse and a garden. And that was just like a question, and people start like chiming in all these answers. And it's like, a greenhouse is you grow in this pot by yourself, like, or there might be a couple plants there. It's comfortable, it's safe, it's all these things. But like a garden, people see the weeds. Like people need to see the weeds of our life too. If people don't walk in the greenhouse, they have no idea what's going on inside there. And so we talk about this, the greenhouse versus the garden, and how the greenhouse to me feels like the Americanized church. That's kind of what we've made it into. But in reality, like, for our group, we want it to be like a garden where we're out there for people to see us. We want to be transparent in our faith constantly so people can see the work that goes into it, the growth that takes place, the weeds, because we're messy people. So we talked about that. And then after that, we did 3 questions, and you had like a little like note card that opens. And it was, what is God calling you to? What's keeping you from that call? And who's someone you want to see come to know Jesus? And so they wrote it in the card, and then they also wrote it in a summarized version on a sticky note. Each one was on a different sticky note. And then they kept the sticky note of the person they wanted to see come to know Jesus. And then the other 2 sticky notes we would put on the altar, and someone else would take your sticky note from those 2. So then they're praying for each other. All 3 of those sticky notes goes in their card then that they can fold up. And they also had one other person that's praying for the person that they want to see come to know Jesus. So we had like mixed that all up. And in that, it's like, now they're being held accountable. Now it's not about me. It's about who am I reaching, or what is God calling me to? And for like dating and things, I feel like that's very much become an idol. In like kind of what you were saying, I think it's very much an idol. When I meet with people, I'm like, man, like that's the most important thing to you. Like the most important thing to you is that you find someone that you can date, someone that you can marry eventually. And for me, I feel like God's really worked in my heart in that, and really given me a heart to challenge people that like he has to come first. Like until you're fully committed to Christ, you're not ready to fully commit to someone else.
So you're going to end up dating someone here pretty soon to get married with that kind of attitude.
I don't know about that.
It's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Jake, I love talk a little bit about who who comes to this thing and how do they get invited?
Yeah. So again, a lot of it is like, who's God calling you to reach this week? So and again, this is all the things that God's been doing in my life. So this isn't like, oh, Jake this and Jake that. Like, this is literally like, God, what do you want me to do? And the things that he's asked me to do have been really challenging, and there's things I didn't want to do. But there are just like Stephanie is super intentional. Like, she's inviting people. So our group is very unique, and we have people from Woodland. We had someone come from Elkhart. We had people come from Fort Wayne, Huntington, Cherubusco, Columbia City, Warsaw. So we have people coming from all over the place. And again, it's like, okay, how are you taking what we're doing here and then taking it back to your own community as well? And so a lot of the inviting is personal invites. That's what we challenge people with, is like, who is it that God's calling you to invite this week? Or who is it that God's challenging you to encourage this week or pray for this week? For me, a lot of my invites happen from social media. I'll see someone who posts something about them struggling, or I'll see, like I talked about earlier, someone who likes my post when I post something that's about God, and I'll reach out to them. And we'll try to get like breakfast. Like, people aren't going to show up if you just text them, most likely, or message them on Facebook. But if you message them or text them and ask them to get breakfast, dinner, or lunch, and then invite them to the ruins from that, like, they're going to be more likely to show up, because now you've shared something together and you've had a conversation and started to develop a relationship. And so that's kind of what I challenge and we challenge people with, is like, be intentional in your invites. So a lot of it is just that, like, random. It's seriously like so random, I feel, because it's like, it's not anything that we could plan. It's just like, I ran into this person at Walmart, or I messaged this person on Facebook to get breakfast. It's like it's very random, I feel, or it's just someone I used to know in high school, and I feel like I'm supposed to invite them.
And so they're not even necessarily Christ followers, correct? I mean, you're just inviting anybody to this thing. Right.
Yeah. We're inviting anyone that will want to show up, like that, anyone who's searching for community. And majority of those, I would say, are Christian people that are showing up. A lot of the relationships that I've been developing outside of that with non-believers, like, this has played a factor into those relationships, though, in some way. One thing that we did, it was like the first week, we took a ball of yarn, and basically we threw it around the room. We did this with Chase's group, actually, too. And so if I'm throwing this to someone, and then it's all like tangled up. So we talked about like how we're in ruins, but we're all connected. If I take the ball of yarn and I throw it to someone, I have to directly look at them for them to be able to catch it. I can't just throw it in the air and hope that they're going to catch it. I have to say, like, Byron or Chase, like, I'm throwing you this ball of yarn because I want you to be connected. And then that person then has the choice whether they throw it to someone else or not. I also have the choice whether I keep holding on to the string and stay connected, because we're adults now, right? Like, it's not like my parents are making me go to church. It's not like my parents are telling me what to do. You now have the choice whether you want to stay connected or not once you've been invited. And so we talked about that a little bit as well.
So I've got a question for you then.
Yeah.
How is this different than a church plant?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I've processed through that some. And again, like, the difference between a garden and a greenhouse, like, that's the thing that I feel like I've gone back to recently, we are a part of the church. Like, the church is the body of Christ, and we want to be a movement in our generation. And that's what the church is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a movement, and we can't be a movement if we're sitting still in the pews. So that's, like, I was challenged with that, because I feel like a couple weeks, it kind of felt like we were just doing regular church again. And my vision that God had given me before was not that. And so that's why it was like, we have to be a movement. Otherwise, we're no different than anything else that's happening. And we want to be different in the ways that we're intentionally seeking lost people, because that is the idea behind the ruins, and the vision behind it is we want to reach lost people. Not only bringing people who have gotten disconnected from the church, but we want to go find lost people and reach them as well.
Yeah, that's part of discipleship, equipping.
Right.
Equipping the Christ followers to be able to go out and reach others, as opposed to come to a safe environment where you can meet other Christian people and not have to worry about what's going on in the rest of the world, but you're actually sending others out which is
Right.
amazing. That's actually what the church should be doing. And so that's why I asked the question, like, hey, I love that it's a bunch of young adults getting together and doing this, but you guys are the church. You're not a young adult group. You're the church. And I think that's something that needs to be embraced more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to rely on the older generation, can actually be the church and do what the church needs to do. And yeah, you're a young adult group, but really, if we go by definition,
Right.
you're a church.
Right.
and that's awesome. That I want to
Yeah.
encourage you to say that's an incredible thing that you're doing and are a part of, and how it's organic and how other leaders are coming around and doing it. And you're not waiting on someone like me who's on staff at a church who's hired to do college and young adult ministry to say, hey, come make this happen for us and gather everybody together and shepherd us. But you're doing it as people your own age, shepherding one another and actually reaching out to people you care about.
Right.
And that's what the church should do. So
yeah, I want to just touch on like the importance of doing what you're doing, Jake. At the very beginning, you were talking about your story where you just felt like you were drowning, and in a way, you said that you would have almost rather drowned than ask for help.
Yeah.
Would you say that's probably true for a lot of young adults now?
Yeah, I feel like that's I think why to me it's been so important to reach out to people and ask them, like not asking, do you need help, but asking, hey, can we meet for lunch? And then you recognize they do need help through that. And I do think that that's the case. I think of one thing that we've talked about in the past is Moses, when he goes on top of the hill and they're fighting the Amalekites. And when he holds the staff above his head, they're winning. And when it falls below his shoulders, they're losing. And then Aaron and Hur come beside and they put a rock under him to sit on and they help hold up his arms. And it's like, who's your Aaron and your Hur? Like, who is helping you walk through this life that's really challenging? Who's helping you grow in your faith because it's really challenging? I love hiking and I love the outdoors. So an analogy that I use is like the wetlands. A definition for the wetlands is that it's the kidneys for our nature's major water, or for our major waterways. And so in good community, it also says it helps filter out the heavy metals and pollutants. So that way the water is a cleaner version when it gets to the major waterways. And so for us, like in good community, we should be able to help each other filter those things out. So when Connor goes back to Warsaw and Stephanie goes back to Woodland, we're a better, cleaner, like image of who God is to those people as we invite them into this, as we invite them into the body of Christ. And I think that's where it's been like, how do we bring people how do we fill a need? Like the thing that I feel like I commonly hear from people after they come is, I really needed this. It's not like, oh, I just wanted to hang out with people. It's like, no, I needed this. And I think there are so many people that need this, especially in our generation of people, especially this group of single young adults that don't even recognize sometimes that they need it until they show up to something similar to this.
So I got a messy question for you.
Yeah. My favorite.
Yes. So this is just reality. Okay.
Yeah.
Being single adults in your 20s, late 20s, there are a lot of needy single adults out there. And if you're not careful, the really needy group can overwhelm the healthy group.
Right.
So how are you managing that balance, that tension in your group so that it stays healthy and it doesn't become a bunch of needy people who kind of make the healthy people uncomfortable and not want to be a part of it?
Right. A big thing for me is I'm a very big, what's the word I'm looking for? I like to facilitate, or pass things out to other people and not have full responsibility of like everything. And so that's something I really try to do. And so when I think of people, like when I meet with people, I picture this person, not using names, this person could really connect with this person, and both of them are struggling to find community. So how do we find people that you can bring together? Like, I know this person and I know this person, they don't know each other yet. So now I've intentionally invited these two people into this. So now they can be someone who sharpens each other. So it's like now the full responsibility is on me to meet with people all the time, or Stephanie to meet with people all the time. It's all of us together have people within that group that we can lean on, that we can rely on, that we can trust. And I think that's a big part of it for our group. We have very, very intentional people in that, like the people that are, and honestly, I haven't felt, and maybe there others have, I haven't felt that we have needy people in our group yet.
Okay.
I mean, it's fairly recent, so maybe there are.
How old is your group, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
Anywhere from
No, I mean, how long has the Ruins been around?
Oh, how long?
Yeah.
We just started it probably in the fall. I think it was in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if we've experienced that yet, but I do feel like there's such a good group of intentional people that it just hasn't felt like, I don't know, everyone's excited to show up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just there'll be a challenge you'll have later on as it goes forward,
Right.
where the really healthy people who are solid get married.
Yeah.
And they move on, and it starts to become, this will take years. This won't be like 1 year, but 3 or 4 years from now, the challenge will be, how do you keep, if you're going to keep it a young adult group, how do you keep it healthy so that you keep bringing in healthy people who can help the people who are unhealthy, but don't let the unhealthy people overwhelm the group.
Right.
And it's just, it's something I've seen with every young adult group over the past, 20 years in Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Where they start out really vibrant, exciting, full of life. Probably about fourth or fifth year into it, it becomes a older 30s group.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's just something just to think about now. Just kind of curious, starting out.
Yeah.
Sounds like you got a really awesome thing going on right now. So, just something to think about as
for
the
sure.
years come along. Like, like, okay, where are we trending and where are we going? And that's why I just kind of like throughout the idea, you thought about being a church plant.
Yeah.
Jake, one more thing I want to touch on before we get off of here. It's been a great discussion. At the beginning, you also mentioned social media. And social media has just become a place, I think, that's just become so toxic in so many ways. And yet you've used that to share light. But you said you look at who and not how many or something. Talk about that just a little bit. Like, how can young adults be constructively using social media?
Yeah. So for me, like, I don't know. I truly believe that you can see God in every single day of your life if you're willing to take the time to reflect on it and see it. And so, like, there was one day again, this is an example. Like, I was going to Walmart and I noticed as I was walking in, there's like all these people in front of me and the doors open and then they close and then they open and then they close for each person that walks through. And as I was processing, like, I always ask the question, God, what do you want to teach me today? And as I was processing, it was like, this person looks completely different than that person. And they just walk through the doors and the doors automatically open for them and close. If the only door that doesn't automatically open is a broken one. And so when we think about loving people really well, like, that's Christ's love, like automatic, like he loves every single person, no matter what you look like he loves you. And that's what we're called to do, is love people. So then I take that and I try to connect. I don't try to connect because it's challenging, because I don't want to take scripture out of context at all. So I pray about it. I seek God. I'm like, God, how does this connect with what you're trying to teach me through your word? And so then I'll go and find a verse that I feel like God is showing me that connects with the visual picture that he's given me. And then I create a post out of it. And then when I post it, I look and see, like I said earlier, like, I know that these 15 people would say that they know Jesus. I recognize these 3 people would not say that they know Jesus. And not that the people that say they know Jesus really know Jesus all the time. Like, I have no idea. I'm not the one to judge, right? Mm-hmm. But I know that these 3 people have said they're not a Christian, or they would say that they're not. So I then send a message, reach out to them in some way, saying, how did you connect to this post? Like, why did you like it? I want to hear your perspective. Like, let's get breakfast, lunch, or dinner and talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's finding ways to connect with people through everyday life. that then connects them to God in some way. And then that's the conversation starter. So that's kind of how I've used it in my own life. And nature is huge for me. Like I love the outdoors, so I use it the outdoors, and I'm a very visual learner. So I'm always trying to find ways to help people see the gospel or understand the gospel through visual pictures and like images and things like that I feel God gives me on a daily basis.
That's awesome.
That's great. I mean, I've not. You've actually challenged me in that way to look at how I use social media, because I've pretty much used social media just to post what's going on with my family or my random hobbies and avoid anything
Right.
Yeah.
somewhat
You have
controversial.
more fish or Jesus on your social media bio.
Yes. So, hey, I have the Jesus fish, right?
Exactly. It all ties in together.
But I love it. I love that idea of, maybe posting some things that get people to think and get, if they like it, reaching out to those people who do like it and to kind of figure out why. I think that's a very creative and innovative way of reaching people through social media. And I think that word of wisdom there alone is worth just listening to what we've been talking about. So I appreciate that, Jake. Anything else, Chase, that you want to ask him, or?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, I just appreciate everything you've said so far, Jake. I appreciate your heart. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, man, just thinking about this group, like we're all literally trying to build our own part of the wall together, and just so excited to see. I think God's moving in this generation, and I think we're on the brink of revival, and I'm just kind of excited to see where the future is going to look like.
Yeah. Can I share? Can I share just one last thing real quick?
Sure. Yes. When you do, I want to pray for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing that this is what I try to share with everyone when I share on something like this or in any group that I've been really challenged with recently is, like in Matthew, it talks about all these people are going to say, but I did this for you. I did this for you. I did this for you, talking to Jesus. And he's going to say, but I never knew you. And that's what I've really been trying to challenge our group with, and the people around me, is if we don't spend time getting to know God, how can we expect him not to say, I never knew you? And if we don't see transformation and change in our own life, how can we expect to see it in the lives of the people around us? And so that's a big thing that I feel like our group's really leaned into, is those two things, like getting to know who God actually is, and then trying to see the transformation and change in our own lives so that affects the people around us. And so that was just one thing that I had written down that I felt like I was supposed to share. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, hey, let's wrap things up. But I want to pray for Jake, you and your ministry, and what you've got going on there with the ruins, and even just being a campus life director. That's a challenge in and of itself,
Right?
Especially with COVID.
Right.
I mean, you got a whole new set of challenges there.
Right.
So let's pray. Father, thank you for just this encouraging time that we've been able to talk online, and who knows who's going to see this, but Father, I just pray that it would encourage someone to take a step of faith and a step of reaching out into community, because I know there are people out there who they're in their 20s, they're a college student, they've just graduated college, they're a young adult, they're looking for just people to be with. It's such a lonely time, and I just pray that you would put it in their hearts to take that step of going somewhere to that maybe out of their comfort zone. If it's a place like the ruins that are in Columbia City, that they would just reach out and say, you know what, that's a place I want to go check out, because I need people in my life. And you know what, there's something missing in my heart, and I want to know what they have. So Father, I pray that you'd be a just incredible encouragement to Jake. He's doing amazing things there with young adults and with high school students in Columbia City. And I just pray that you would just help him see the fruits of his labor, and that you'd encourage him and encourage the people around him, so they keep on just pushing forward and reaching people in new and innovative and creative ways that just never thought about before. So I just pray that you'd raise them up to be the church that they already are. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. So Jake, how can they find you? What's your modem app? I was going to say something really smart, but I don't know what it is. How can they find you? What's your social media look like?
Yeah. So we have the Ruins social media, like Instagram. To be honest, I haven't been like super huge on that and being consistent. A lot of our stuff like has honestly just happened through personal invites and things. And then we have a remind text group that whenever we get a hold of someone or talk to someone about it, we give them that. And then every week we send out that remind text. And so, I mean, if they follow, like sometimes on my own social media, I'll post things. So that's another way. But the Ruins actual social media, like we haven't been super consistent with, to be honest.
The reality is you probably will have a much bigger following on your personal social media than what you could if you created one for the room.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Cool. So what's your name? How can we find you on Instagram?
Yeah. So it's Jake 2 Johnson. So the number 2. Jake 2 Johnson.
2.
Byron's looking it up as
yeah.
Oh, I'm actually typing it in the comments.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, good idea. Wow. Well, yeah, thanks so much for being here, Jake. Like I said, we love you. We appreciate your heart. We're excited to see the ministry you're going to do and the people around you, the ministry they're going to do as well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, next week, we're off for 1 week. 2 weeks from now, we'll be back on and we'll have some special guests with us. We'll get some new, hopefully, production going on. And we can't wait to see everybody. If you like this, share it. Let other people know about it. We want to get a little bit bigger following and let people know that this is taking place bi-weekly. And it's just a great way to invite other people in the community, especially if you're out there on your own. So thanks for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.